YouTube Kids is a double-edged sword. On one hand, your kids can watch family-friendly content like cartoon clips, but on the other hand, they could see the content that is not appropriate for them at all. I was babysitting my neighbor's kid. I don't want to reveal his actual name, so we can just call him Kevin. Kevin was really into YouTube Kids. He mostly watched a lot of content focused on FNAF, Minecraft, Pokemon, and this one internet show called The Amazing Digital Circus. I usually didn't mind him being on the app though, until one Sunday evening. I decided to check his watch history out of curiosity to see if what he was watching was age appropriate. I found one video in particular called The Amazing Digital Circus vs. Skibbity Toilet and Grimace Shake Funny Videos for Kids by a channel called PomniToonz. The video starts off with your usual run-of-the-mill YouTube Kids cartoon, poorly made 2D animation depicting characters from the Amazing Digital Circus getting into strange, unusual situations that would never happen in the actual series. Those scenarios usually involved other characters, often used in content farm videos, like Bon Bon and Huggy Wuggy. These animations were around 7 to 10 minutes long and were usually compiled together into a 1 hour long video. To most, this video wouldn't warrant any further investigation, but it was the thumbnail that made me curious. It was Pomni standing in a black void with a spotlight on her. Her colors looked desaturated, and she was staring towards the ground, her face shrouded in shadow. This made me think it was potentially some sort of Elsagate video, and I started panicking that maybe Kevin had seen something he shouldn't have. That was the reason I decided to watch it, to make sure it wasn't anything inappropriate. And for the majority of the video, it was perfectly kid-friendly. No violence, no swearing, no weird fetish content, just regular YouTube Kids animations. That is, until towards the end of the video. It opened with a shot of the outside of the circus before zooming in and cutting off to show the interior. All the characters were standing around in a group with Kane floating in front of them. Welcome, I've gathered you all here today to announce my newest adventure. Today, you'll all be fighting my army of skibbity toilets. Whoever kills the most will win a lifetime supply of Grimace Shakes, Kane said. His voice was an AI text-to-speech, made him sound like him, and for the first couple of videos I watched, I genuinely thought they had gotten the original voice actors to reprise their roles as the characters. Once Kane had explained his adventure, all of the characters began mindlessly cheering and babbling about how much they wanted to try the Grimace Shake, all except for Pomni, who was staring blankly off into the distance. At first I thought this was some sort of animation error. It wouldn't surprise me considering how low effort the animation looked, but then it cut to show Pomni's point of view, revealing she was seeing something the rest of the cast wasn't. A large red door labeled EXIT in bold white letters. At first Pomni hesitated, but after a brief moment, she began walking away from the rest of the characters and towards the door. The obnoxiously cheerful background music quietly faded the further Pomni moved away. Pomni walked through the exit door, ending up in an abandoned office building setting that looked like it was made in Blender. She walked through the long, endless corridors. The music and bright colors are now completely gone, the only sound being the ambient buzz of the lights overhead and that faint ticking of a clock. Another noticeable change was the improvement in the quality of the animation, with Pomni no longer just having flat colors. Light now realistically reflected off of her, and she walked much more naturally than before, almost as though it had been rotoscoped. At this point, I was taken completely off guard by this jump in quality. I got so used to staring at the choppy, stilted animation that the sight of actual effort being put in came as a shock to me. I am now fully invested in what I was watching, and I knew the video I'd stumbled upon wasn't like most of its kind. This went a lot deeper than just animated brain rot made for quick profit. As Pomni traversed the seemingly endless maze of rooms, I began to notice a pattern. In every room she passed through, there was a framed photo on the wall of a man and his wife. As Pomni moved further and further into the building, the photos seemed to show a passing of time, with each photo being more and more recent. After Pomni had gone through about 14 different rooms, his wife was wheelchair-bound. After 26 different rooms, she was bed-bound. And after 33 rooms, she was no longer in the photos at all. It was just the man now, with a much more glum expression than before. Pomni began breathing heavily as she started to run through the office building, attempting to find a way out, and eventually, she did. As she opened the final door frantically, she was met with someone's real apartment. Not a 3D space made in Blender, but an actual live-action apartment. To the right, sitting on the couch, was the man from the photos. In front of him was a coffee table with 3 things on it: an empty beer bottle, an ashtray full of used cigarettes, and a worn-out drawing tablet. The man turned to look at Pomni, but he seemed unfazed by her presence. "Oh, it's you. Not often I get visitors these days," he said before slouching back down into his original position. "Who are you?" Pomni asked, leaving the doorway and stepping into the apartment. "My name's Nassim. I'm the one behind all this, as much as I'd hate to admit it," he said, seeming almost embarrassed with himself. "But that's impossible. Kane runs the amazing digital circus," she said, raising an eyebrow in confusion. "Which one's Kane again? Is he the rabbit or the set of teeth? I'm not too good at remembering the names, you guys, but I really don't need to be. As long as I just keep doing what I'm doing, they'll still carry on watching," he said, with a hint of hopelessness in his voice. "Who's they?" Pomni asked, slowly walking closer to Nassim. "Children. Kids don't care about clever writing or an actual plot as long as their favorite characters are involved. And that's where I come in. I just animate overstimulating garbage and upload it to YouTube, and that's been my only source of income for nearly a year. It's the only job I can hold down ever since I lost her." His voice began to get shaky as he covered his face with his hands. "You mean the woman in the pictures?" Pomni asked remorsefully, now standing right beside him. He nodded his head while still cupping his face with his hands. "Ever since she died, I've been on a downward spiral. I've applied for 6 jobs in the past 2 months, and I've been fired from all of them before I could even get my first paycheck. Drawing and animation have been my only source of joy, so I assumed making a career from that would help me both mentally and financially. But all it's done is make my life even more miserable. I don't enjoy making any of this. I just do it out of necessity. If I didn't, I'd be thrown out on the street. It's the only way I can keep the lights on," he said, sighing after finishing his sentence. "So that's what I am? That's what all my friends are?" Pomni asked, a look of disbelief forming on her face. "Unfortunately, yes. I'm sorry you had to be the one to hear this, kiddo, but life is cruel. There's no denying it. At least your world is bright and colorful. Mine's a desaturated nightmare full of loss and despair," he said, not daring to make eye contact with Pomni after what he had said. The two just sat in the apartment in awkward silence for a while after that, the silence only broken when Pomni began quietly sobbing, covering her face with her hands and leaning on the arm of the couch for support. The scene stayed like this for about 15 seconds before Kane poofed into the room in a cloud of cartoon smoke. "Oh, there you are, Pomni," he said, before yanking Pomni by the arm and disappearing with her. The scene then stayed on Nassim sitting motionlessly on the couch, before he too began to cry. The scene abruptly cut back to the digital circus, with Kane reappearing with Pomni. Everyone else was huddled around in a circle, sipping grimace shakes and reminiscing about the day they'd had. Pomni just stood there, not saying anything, black mascara running down her face from her crying, her whole body shaking slightly. Kane floated down to Pomni with an obnoxiously happy expression. "Wow, Pomni, you should have seen the crazy adventure we had. We did try looking for you, but you're just too darn good at hiding. Anyways, Regatha won the supply of grimace shakes and decided to share it with everyone. You want one?" Kane said, pulling the purple milkshake out from behind his back and offering it to Pomni. Pomni didn't respond and remained motionless, before letting out a chuckle. This chuckle slowly grew louder and louder to the point where she was laughing maniacally. I couldn't even tell if it was the AI voice or if they had actually gotten a real woman to laugh like that. The laughing became more intense, and black, glitchy patches with eyes began forming on Pomni's body as she began to abstract. Kane continued to stare at her with a cheerful expression, seemingly not processing what was happening. Just before the black substance completely covered Pomni's body, the video cut to black, followed by cheerful, royalty-free music playing over the screen. The text "like and subscribe" appeared in bold letters, resembling the font from the Amazing Digital Circus title. After the video ended, my mind was racing. I could barely process what I had just watched, and I desperately wanted answers. I tried bringing it up to Kevin, asking about that specific video in his watch history, but when I brought it up to him, he just said that he had stopped watching a quarter of the way through since the rest of the video in the compilations were ones he had already seen. As for the PomniToonz channel, I've had no luck trying to find the original channel. It's as if the owner of the channel completely wiped themselves from the internet. I genuinely am concerned for this guy, though, and I hope that he gets the help he needs. I gotta admit, I've never heard of this one. I went on a bit of an internet odyssey recently to try and find lost episode stuff, because I want to find more uncommon stories. There's always the ones that everyone insists on reading over and over. I'm not sure if anyone's read this one. It's a very, very obscure one. I was kind of curious if anyone had bothered to make like the amazing digital circus creepypasta stuff, because I feel like it already kind of factors into the show itself if you've seen it. I have. I've been watching with some good friends of mine. It's alright. It's not my favorite thing, but I do enjoy the series quite a bit now that I've seen it. And I do certainly have some thoughts about the story. I think the biggest problems with this story is it really depends if you like the premise, if you want to have your suspension of disbelief for such a strange idea, and how the narrator just really doesn't explain what any of this is well. And by that, I don't mean that the story is poorly written. The grammar is pretty consistent, and I can always paint a picture of what was happening through the prose. It's just that he doesn't explain really well what a content farm is, or like the other characters crossing over. I know what he means because I've seen that stuff myself. I know the exact scenario. But if you're older, you're going to be so confused. Like, what is any of this? Like, I don't think there's enough examples painted for Elsagate. He just kind of throws the term Elsagate in there. I know what it is. Most people watching this video probably already know what it is. So in that regard, it does succeed in helping with the target audience. But it does kind of shoot itself in the foot, where the narrator is supposed to be like an older character. I mean, I assume at least like a teenager. We don't really know how old this guy or girl is, but it's like a child watching this, so you really have to buy the suspension of disbelief. And if you don't, you think it's stupid, then you're just not going to enjoy the story. Simple as. But if you do like the premise, this is actually a pretty interesting tale, because it's not like a haunted YouTube video or something, like an actual episode. It's a content farm. Just some guy decided to essentially make this weird multimedia trauma dump, essentially, of how he had lost his wife and how much he hates animating kid stuff. So he'd go back to like kind of like a garbage art style, and then it's described that it gets more, there's more effort put into it, where he kind of puts himself out there and just describes how miserable he is, like puts himself on camera and very smoothly animates Pomni, which is very weird. I want you to picture that. If you just hate your job and you animate yourself talking to like a cartoon character, like, my life sucks, man, I want to die, and the cartoon character has to either comfort you or just be really, really uncomfortable. I don't think Pomni's a great choice to trauma dump on, but I think it is realistic, because stuff like that's happened before. I know of a channel, if anyone remembers, what was it, Know Your Meme? This is an old poll, I sound old, but out of the blue, he made a dumb series explaining like internet memes, and one day he just uploaded this like really dramatic and shocking video where like he pretends to die, and he has like an audience of kids. Like, it was a really edgy, strange, attention-grabbing move. So people have done this before. This really, in my opinion at least, it really wasn't that out of the blue for someone to animate something like this. And then it's written well. The author was able to sell that idea and make it kind of feasible. Little bit of a cop-out where it's just, I couldn't find the guy. Like, you really... Because I feel like it would have been much more interesting if we got to view Nassim's like channel a little bit more and kind of learn about his other. We can see the progress of his mental state declining through his uploads, because he could have been a lot more passionate about animating this stuff. Like, could have been like original animations, and then he turned his channel into a garbage like content farm for just weird, stupid kid horror trends like Baldi's Basics and FNAF and all that garbage. But I suppose it is kind of a missed opportunity there. But what we do have, I do enjoy quite a bit. I was just looking for like a digital circus creepypasta, but what we have is a little bit more interesting, something to have a conversation about, and I applaud the author for that, so I would say good job. But as always, I am curious, do you think this did a good job at being a digital circus creepypasta, or is it just kind of using the characters as a bit of a pastiche? I am curious to know, so leave your comments down below and we can talk about it. But until then, have a lovely rest of your day. Oh yeah, apparently PomniToonz is like kind of a thing. I don't think it's the exact channel being described because, well, obviously that video does not exist. He's just making it up for the story. But I did find a YouTube channel named PomniToonz, so maybe that's where he got it from. Could be a coincidence. I don't know. It's probably a point in the story's favor though for believability.